Welcome back, boys and girls. Toby's Story, Chapter 7. Well, what do you think's going to happen next? Let's find out. After Mona and I had played training, she left for the day. That night, Patsy fed me and petted me goodbye. Once she left, I lay still in my bed for a while, but I couldn't go to sleep. So I got up and I stretched and I wandered to the door of my room. I pushed at it with one of my paws, and it swung open. Outside, the hallway was dark and quiet. It wasn't like it was in the daytime, with people walking up and down, some briskly and some quickly on their own feet, some slowly in those tall cages they call walkers. There were no carts rattling by and no people in chairs. In fact, there was nobody in sight. All that running today in the grass outside made me remember the ranch and how I used to sleep in a pile with all my brothers and sisters cuddled close to my mother's side. I didn't feel like sleeping alone. Why should I, when I have so many friends? I trotted down the hallway. I trotted down the halls until I reached a familiar room, Granddad's. The door was open a crack. I stuck my nose into the crack so I could sniff up Granddad's smell. That made the door open wider. So naturally, I went inside. Granddad was lying in his bed, with the light on over his head. He had a book propped on his chest. When the door opened, he glanced over and smiled. "Hey there, Toby boy," he said. I wagged to hear my name and the affection in his voice. I knew I was welcome. So I hopped up on the end of the bed, turned into a circle a few times, flopped down next to his feet, and sighed with contentment. "You're telling me it's time to turn out the light," Granddad said. He put the book on the bedside table and reached up to touch the lamp next to him. The light vanished. He shifted and settled into the bed, and I waited until he was lying still. Then I wiggled closer so that his feet would keep me warm. It felt better to sleep with this than all alone in my bed. Did that mean I belonged to Granddad now? It didn't seem quite right. I liked Granddad, and I was happy to be curled up next to his feet. But he wasn't who fed me. Mona and sometimes Patsy did that. And they both petted me and praised me. And Mona took me outside to the lawn to do training games. But then they left. That happened every day. They left and I stayed. Tyler did the same thing. He'd play with me and then he left. Granddad didn't leave. He stayed. And there was Eddie, of course. He fed me bacon. My tail twitched a little at that thought. But it didn't seem likely that I belonged to Eddie. I didn't even see him every day, although I was happy whenever I did. I liked my new home. I really did, especially now that my feet felt better, and I could run all I liked. But it was confusing. There were so many people here. Mona and Patsy, Granddad and Tyler, Eddie and Fran. Which one did I belong to? I fell asleep wondering. In the morning, Granddad stirred and I wiggled up to lick his face. Someone knocked on the door. "Come in," Granddad called sleepily, pushing me back with one hand and patting me at the same time. "Excuse me, have you seen Toby?" "Oh, there you are." Mona came in. "I'm so sorry. Did he bother you?" No, don't be sorry," Granddad said. "I enjoyed the company." Mona scooped me up. "Toby, I'm taking you out, and there's going to be work on something new. And then we're going to work on something new." Mona took me outside to squat. Then she brought me back inside and filled my bowl. Once I'd eaten, she clipped my leash onto my collar. "Come on, Toby, new lesson today." She took me into a room. I hadn't been in there before. There was a bed in it, and someone was lying in it. I perked up as I sniffed, smelling a familiar person. Patsy. "Okay, Toby, get on up," Mona said. "We know you can do it." She patted the bed, and I jumped up beside Patsy. "Down, Toby," Mona said. She took a treat out of her pocket. We were doing training? Well, that was very strange. Why were we doing training on a bed? But that treat smelled very interesting, so I did it. I lay down. "Good boy, Toby," Mona said, and she gave me the treat. Excellent. "Good. Now lie still. Lie still," Patsy said. Patsy, I was so busy with the treat that I hadn't greeted her properly. I jumped up and threw myself across her body to get to her face. I licked her cheeks and her chin and under her neck to show her how much I liked her. She pushed me back with one hand. "No, Toby, no," she said sternly. I sat down in astonishment. No? Why was she saying no? I was beginning to learn that word along with the other ones Mona used in training, and I did not like it. It was even worse than stay. Why would anyone say no to licking? A striped blanket was covering Patsy's legs and feet. I pounced on it and grabbed it with my teeth, giving it a good shake. Once Patsy saw that I was ready to play, she wouldn't say no anymore. We'd have fun. "Toby, no," Mona said. I paused with the blanket still gripping between my teeth. Both of them were saying no? What was going on here? "Toby, lie still," Mona said, reaching out for me. I dropped the blanket, jumped away from her hands, and I leaped off the bed. If Patsy didn't want to play with the blanket, I'd find something else. I tore off toward the small room with my bed. Beside the bed was a basket full of balls and toys, good for chewing and also for chasing. I grabbed a rubber ring and I trotted back to the room where I had left Mona and Patsy. Now we could play. I jumped up on the bed and showed Patsy the toy. She sighed. "Oh boy, this really isn't working out." I dropped the ring on the blanket next to Patsy, but for some strange reason she did not play with it. She just lay there. Was there something wrong with her? Had she been chewing on her feet? "What's this?" asked a new voice from the doorway. We all looked that way. Fran was standing there. She was frowning again. "Training," Patsy said, sitting up. I picked up the chew toy and offered it to Patsy again. Surely she'd figure it out this time. Fran shook her head. "You can't train a beagle not to be a beagle," she said. It was not actually that much fun on the bed since Patsy kept ignoring the toy. I jumped off. Mona tried to grab me, but I dodged her hands and ran past Fran's feet. When Mona and I had a great game of chase up and down the hallways, I loved playing with Mona. But Mona wasn't there all the time. Patsy was usually around in the day, but often she sat in a chair at a desk and tapped on a plastic keyboard that did not even smell interesting. Oh, it must be a computer. When she did that, she shooed me away. "Not now, Toby, I'm working," she'd say. I soon came to understand that working meant no fun. Luckily, there were other people to see. I visited Grandpa a lot, and sometimes Tyler was there too. As I trotted up and down the halls, I got to know the others. There was one big room with several windows where there were soft couches and comfy chairs that got a lot of sunlight. That was a good room to visit. People were usually sitting on the couches and watching a black plastic box that blared out sound and showed moving pictures. I sniffed at it once or twice, but the pictures did not smell, so I knew that was not real. What do you think that? Oh, a TV. Frankly, I did not understand why people liked to look at things so much when they could have been chasing a ball or chewing a stick or petting a dog. But people are funny like that. When I trotted into that room, there was always someone who would pet me or invite me to sit on the couch beside him or her. Some of my friends started keeping treats in their pockets for me, which of course made me even more interested in saying hello to them. One woman was almost always there. She sat in a particular corner of the couch and didn't say much to anyone. "Dorothy, wouldn't you like to come down the hall to the craft session?" people would say, stopping to talk to her. "Dorothy, isn't it time for your physical therapy? Dorothy, what if I take you outside in your wheelchair?" That's how I figured out that her name was Dorothy. People used her name with her just like Mona used my name with me when we were doing training. I wondered if those people were trying to train Dorothy. She didn't look like she enjoyed it very much more than I did. They probably needed to feed her better treats. Dorothy didn't usually answer the people. She didn't seem to talk very much, but she would say my name when I came by and I reached down to rub behind my ears. Her fingers were not very strong, but they were gentle, and I knew she knew just the right spots. I'd sit down beside her and lean my head into her hand. One day when I came for a usual visit, Dorothy showed me something in her hand. A ball. A small rubber ball. Oops. Sorry about that. And then bounced. She threw the ball for me. It didn't go very far. It hit a wall and rolled a little distance, and then bounced weakly off a chair with wheels. "Oh my," said the person in the chair. I chased the ball, but it was so close by that I actually ran too far and had to skid to a stop, turn around, and grab it in my mouth. Triumphantly, I brought the ball back to Dorothy. Dorothy threw it for a few more times. It wasn't like chasing a ball outside with Mona. Mona could throw the ball so that went nearly all the way across the lawn. When Dorothy did the throwing, the ball only went a short distance. Once, I had to chase it under the legs of the table. More than once, I dodged around a few people pushing those odd half cages that Granddad liked to use. All of that slowed me down, but I got the ball each time and brought it back to Dorothy. Then I licked her shoes to say goodbye and hurried off to see more of my friends. Patsy was standing in the door of the room when I went back into the hallway. "Well, look at that," she murmured to herself. She was smiling. I wonder why she was smiling. After that, Dorothy usually had the little ball with her, and when I came by to visit, she got better and better at throwing it. It was more fun to chase it when she could put more power behind the throw. It still bounced off chairs and walls and zigzagged under tables, though. More than once I had to burrow under the couch to get it and return it to Dorothy's hand. I always found it, though. That ball could now escape me.